Okay, we're live.
Put an alarm in my phone. Maybe that'll work. Go to
Hi
bed.
everyone, welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangouts. This is a hangout that you can watch, or you can actually come into the hangout if you want to. I had someone message me yesterday. You just have to join the Facebook group where I post the link to actually be on the panel and read or contribute if you want to. So you're very welcome to do that. You just do need to join that Facebook group. So I don't want to publish that on Google because we'll have, all kinds of weird stuff going on otherwise. um, so we're reading about poverty, the fear of poverty in this chapter. It's actually chapter 15, and we're on page, oh, I just had it. Page 214. No, sorry. Oh, hang on. Oh, this is so silly. I had the page and then I tried to find the chapter, so I lost it. We're on around page 214. Here we go. 215, that's it, the very end of the page. And so this whole chapter is about how people kind of the weird attitudes that people have with money. So it's not very light and chirpy, but I think it's important because it helps you get more aware of it when you're reading about it. There's something about that that makes it less mysterious and scary. Like normally when people get into fear, it can just kind of take hold of you. So would anybody like to read this morning?
I'll read. If nobody else
Okay.
wants to.
Nobody else wants to?
Well, it'd be
Okay.
nice to hear Geraldine's Irish lilt.
No
You gonna
pressure.
read, Jordan?
It depends upon how good your connection is, too, right? Sometimes,
Yeah.
I'll read yeah, I can read.
Okay, cool.
Well, we're starting at the top of 14, was it?
At the end of 215,
Or 215, okay.
it's symptoms of the fear of ill health.
Oh, symptoms.
Just so I think it's quite nice to switch it up so we have
Oh, I see, okay. Yeah,
voices reading.
just after lack of ambition, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, I see it there. Okay.
So if you can zoom into the page so it's
Yeah.
nice and
I'll
easy
do
to
my
read.
share, do the share here.
Yeah.
Okay, right there,
Yeah.
right?
Perfect.
Okay, the fear of ill health. This fear may be traced to both physical and social
Oh,
heredity.
Glenn,
Yes.
sorry, we're just a bit above that. It's page oh no, yeah, we're not. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay,
come
I'm
to think
going
of
mad.
you're right. I don't think we read this list here, the major symptoms of fear.
No, I think I missed a part. Oh no, you're right actually. The fear we're on the fear of ill health, I think. Yeah.
I thought we were at the bottom of 215 where it says the symptoms of the fear of ill health. The
Did
symptoms
you
of
read
this
about the
almost
flu
universal.
epidemic though yesterday? I don't think you did, Jackie. It's page 214 and it's the fear of ill health, but not the symptoms. It's actually the I think that's what you were just reading. I'm
Oh,
sorry. Just ignore me.
oh, and I finished at lack of ambition.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, go for it, Glenn. Sorry. Glenn? Oh no, now we've lost Glenn. Today's an interesting day. Come back, Glenn. um,
He'll be back.
yeah, I'm just
He's
seeing if there's anything in the
the
chat.
wrong button.
Uh, he's okay. Glenn, are you there? I'll just post in the chat. Otherwise, maybe Jack, if you want to read. I think we've lost him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think we should just start reading.
All right.
Do you have the page, Jackie?
Yeah. Hmm. All right. Um. The fear of ill health?
Yeah.
And then put it on the screen. Is that good?
Yeah.
This fear may be traced to both physical and social heredity. It is closely associated as to its origin with the causes of fear of old age and the fear of death, because it leads one closely to the border of terrible worlds of which human knows not, but concerning which he has been taught some discomforting stories. The opinion is somewhat general, also, that certain unethical people engaged in business of selling health have had not a little to do with keeping alive the fear of ill health. Did Glenn come back on?
Oh, yeah.
He's on the line. Do you want to read, Glenn?
No, you can go ahead, Jackie. Yeah.
In the main, human fears ill health because of the terrible pictures which have been planted in their mind of what may happen if death should overtake them. They also fear it because of the economic toll which it may claim. A reputable physician estimated that 75% of all people who visit physicians for professional service are suffering with hypochondria, or imaginary illness. It has been shown most convincingly that the fear of disease, even where there is not the slightest cause for fear, often produces the physical symptoms of the disease feared. Powerful and mighty is the human mind. It builds or it destroys. Playing upon this common weakness of fear of ill health, dispensers of patent medicines have reaped fortunes. This form of imposition upon credulous humanity became so prevalent some 20 years ago that Collier's Weekly magazine conducted a bitter campaign against some of the worst offenders in the patent medicine business. During the flu epidemic, which broke out during World War, the mayor of New York City took drastic steps to check the damage which people were doing themselves through the inherent fear of ill health. He called in the newspapermen and said to them, "Gentlemen, I feel it necessary to ask you not to publish any scare headlines concerning the flu epidemic. Unless you cooperate with me, we will have a situation which we cannot control." The newspapers quit publishing stories about the flu, and within 1 month the epidemic had been successfully checked. Through a series of experiments conducted some years ago, it was proved that people may be made ill by suggestion. We conducted this experiment by causing 3 acquaintances to visit the victims, each of whom asked the question, "What ails you? You look terribly ill." The first questioner usually provoked a grin and nonchalant, "Oh, nothing, I'm all right," from the victim. The second questioner usually was answered with the statement, "I don't know exactly, but I do feel badly." The third questioner was usually met with the frank admission that the victim was actually feeling ill. Try this on an acquaintance if you doubt that it will make him uncomfortable, but do not carry the experiment too far. There is a certain religious sect whose members take vengeance upon their enemies by the hexing method. They call it placing a spell on the victim. There is overwhelming evidence that disease sometimes begins in the form of a negative thought impulse. Such an impulse may be passed from one mind to another by suggestion or created by an individual in his own or her own mind. A person who is blessed with more wisdom than this incident might indicate once said, "When anyone asks me how I feel, I always want to answer by knocking him down." Doctors send patients into new climates for their health because a change of mental attitude is necessary. The seed of fear of ill health lives in every human mind. Worry, fear, discouragement, disappointment in love and business affairs cause the seed to germinate and grow. The recent business depression kept the doctors on the run because every form of negative thinking may cause ill health. Disappointments in business and in love stand at the head of the list of causes of fear of ill health. A young person suffered a disappointment in love which sent them to the hospital. For months, he or she hovered between life and death. A specialist in suggestive therapeutics was called in. The specialist changed nurses, placing him in charge of a very charming young woman who began, by pre-arrangement with the doctor, to make love to him on the first day of her arrival on the job. Within 3 weeks, the patient was discharged from the hospital, still suffering, but with an entirely different malady. He was in love again. The remedy was a hoax, but the patient and the nurse were later married. Both are in good health at the time of this writing. Symptoms of the fear of ill health. The symptoms of this almost universal fear are: 1. Autosuggestion. The habit of negative use of self-suggestion by looking for and expecting to find the symptoms of all kinds of disease. Enjoying imaginary illness and speaking of it as being real. The habit of trying all fads and isms recommended by others as having therapeutic value. Talking to others of operations, accidents, and other forms of illness. Experimenting with diets, physical exercises, reducing symptoms without professional guidance. Trying home remedies, patent medicines, and quack remedies. 2. Hypochondria. The habit of talking of illness, concentrating the mind upon disease, and expecting its appearance until a nervous break occurs. Nothing that comes in bottles can cure this condition. It is brought on by negative thinking, and nothing but positive thought can effect a cure. Hypochondria, a medical term for imaginary disease, is said to do as much damage on occasion as the disease one fears might do. Most so-called cases of nerves come from imaginary illness. Exercise. Fear of ill health often interferes with proper physical exercise and results in overweight by causing one to avoid outdoor life. Susceptibility. Fear of ill health breaks down nature's body resistance and creates a favorable condition for any form of disease one may contact. The fear of ill health often is related to the fear of poverty, especially in the case of hypochondriac who constantly worries about the possibility of having to pay doctor's bills, hospital bills, etc. This type of person spends much time preparing for sickness, talking about death, saving money for cemetery lots and burial expenses, etc. Self-coddling. The habit of making a bid for sympathy using imaginary illness as the lure. People often resort to this trick to avoid work. The habit of feigning illness to cover plain laziness or to serve as an alibi for lack of ambition. Intemperance. The habit of using alcohol or narcotics to destroy pain such as headaches, neuralgia, etc., instead of eliminating the cause. The habit of reading about illness and worrying over the possibility of being stricken by it. The habit of reading patent medicine advertisements. The fear of loss of love. The original source of this inherent fear needs but little description because it obviously grew out of man's polygamous habit of stealing his fellow man's mate and his habit of taking liberties with her whenever he could. Jealousy and other similar forms of dementia, praecox, grow out of man's inherent fear of the loss of love of someone. This fear is the most painful of all the 6 basic fears, and it probably plays more havoc with the body and mind than any of the other basic fears, as it often leads to permanent insanity. Fear of the loss of love probably dates back to the Stone Age, when men stole women by brute force. They continue to steal females, but their technique has changed. Instead of force, they now use persuasion, the promise of pretty clothes, motor cars, and other bait much more effective than physical force. Man's habits are the same as they were at the dawn of civilization, but he expresses them differently. Careful analysis has shown that women are more susceptible to this fear than men. This fact is easily explained. Women have learned from experience that men are polygamous by nature, but they're not to be trusted in the hands of rivals. Symptoms of the fear of loss of love. The distinguishing symptoms of this fear are jealousy, the habit of being suspicious of friends and loved ones without any reasonable evidence of sufficient grounds. Jealousy is a form of dementia praecox which sometimes becomes violent without the slightest cause. The habit of accusing a wife or a husband of infidelity without grounds, general suspicion of everyone, absolute faith in no one. Fault finding. The habit of finding fault with friends, relatives, business associates, and loved ones upon the slightest provocation and without any cause whatsoever. Gambling. The habit of gambling, stealing, cheating, and otherwise taking hazardous chances to provide money for loved ones, with the belief that love can be bought. The habit of spending beyond one's means and incurring debts to provide gifts for loved ones with the object of making a favorable showing. Insomnia, nervousness, lack of persistence, weakness of will, lack of self-control, lack of self-reliance, and bad temper. Should I keep going? The fear of old age. In the main, this fear grows out of 2 sources. First, the thought that old age may bring with it poverty. Secondly, and by far the most common source of origin, from false and cruel teachings of the past which have been too well mixed with fire and brimstone, and other boogies cunningly designed to enslave man through fear. In the basic fear of old age, man has 2 very sound reasons for his apprehension. One, growing out of his or her distrust of their fellow person, who may seize whatever worldly goods they may possess, and the other arising from the terrible pictures of the world beyond, which were planted in their mind through social hereditary before they came into full possession of their mind. The possibility of ill health, which is more common as people grow older, is also a contributing cause of this common fear of old age. Eroticism also enters to the cause of the fear of old age, as no person cherishes the thought of diminishing sexual attraction. The most common cause of fear of old age is associated with the possibility of poverty. Poorhouse is not a pretty word. It throws a chill into the mind of every person who faces the possibility of having to spend their declining years on a poor farm. Another contributing symptom of the fear of old age is the possibility of loss of freedom and independence, as old age may bring with it the loss of both physical and economic freedom. Symptoms of the fear of old age. The commonest symptoms of this fear are the tendency to slow down and develop an inferiority complex at the age of mental maturity, around the age of 40, falsely believing oneself to be slipping because of age. The truth is that people's most useful years, mentally and spiritually, are those between 40 and 60. The habit of speaking apologetically of one's self as being old merely because one has reached the age of 40 or 50, instead of reversing the rule and expressing gratitude for having reached the age of wisdom and understanding. The habit of killing off initiative, imagination, and self-reliance by falsely believing oneself too old to exercise these qualities. The habit of a man or woman of 40 dressing with the aim of trying to appear much younger and affecting mannerisms of youth, thereby inspiring ridicule by both friends and strangers. The fear of death. To some, this is the cruelest of all basic fears. The reason is obvious. The terrible pangs of fear associated with the thought of death, in the majority of cases, may be charged directly to religious fanaticism. So-called heathen are less afraid of death than the more civilized. For hundreds of millions of years, man may be asking the still unanswered questions, whence and whither? Where did I come from, and where am I going? During the darker ages of the past, for the more cunning and crafty were not slow to offer the answer to these questions for a price. Witness now the major source of origin of the fear of death. Come into my tent, embrace my faith, accept my dogmas, and I will give you a ticket that will admit you straight away into heaven when you die, cries a leader of sectarianism. Remain out of my tent, says the same leader, and may the devil take you and burn you throughout eternity. Eternity is a long time. Fire is a terrible thing. The thought of eternal punishment with fire not only causes man to fear death, it often causes him to lose his reason. It destroys interest in life and makes happiness impossible. During my research, I reviewed a book entitled A Catalogue of the Gods, in which were listed the 30,000 gods which man has worshipped. Think of it, 30,000 of them, represented by everything from a crawfish to a man. It is little wonder that men have become frightened at the approach of death. While the religious leader may not be able to provide safe conduct into heaven, nor by lack of such provision allow the unfortunate to descend into hell, the possibility of the latter seems so terrible that the very thought of it lays hold of the imagination in such a realistic way that it paralyzes reason and sets up the fear of death. In truth, no man knows, and no person knows, and no person has ever known what heaven or hell is like, nor does any person know if either place actually exists. This very lack of positive knowledge opens the doors of the human mind to the charlatan, so they may enter and control that mind with their stock of legerdemain and various brands of pious fraud and trickery. The fear of death is not as common now as it was during the age when there were no great colleges or universities. Men of science have turned the spotlight of truth upon the world, and this truth is rapidly freeing men and women from this terrible fear of death. The young men and women who attend the colleges and universities are not easily impressed by fire and brimstone. Through the aid of biology, astronomy, geology, and other related sciences, the fear of the dark ages which gripped the minds of people and destroyed their reason have been dispelled. Insane asylums are filled with men and women who have gone mad because of the fear of death. This fear is useless. Death will come no matter what anyone may think about. Accept it as a necessity and pass the thought out of your mind. It must be a necessity or it would not come to all. Perhaps it is not as bad as has been pictured. The entire world is made up of only two things, energy and matter. In elementary physics, we learn that neither matter nor energy, the only true realities known to humans, can be created nor destroyed. Both matter and energy can be transformed, but neither can be destroyed. Life is energy, if it is anything. If neither energy nor matter can be destroyed, of course, life cannot be destroyed. Life, like other forms of energy, may be passed through various processes of transition or change, but it cannot be destroyed. Death is mere transition. If death is not mere change or transition, then nothing comes after death except a long, eternal, peaceful sleep, and sleep is nothing to be feared. Thus you may wipe out forever the fear of death.
Cool. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks for stepping in. And just a quick reminder why we're reading all this like quite heavy stuff about these different fears. This chapter is the 6 outwitting the 6 ghosts of fear. So what he does is he goes through each one to give you more awareness of what they actually are and how they sort of work, and like so that people can see where perhaps they're functioning from it, where they don't realize. Because when you realize it, then you can change it. So in case you're wondering, why are we talking about the fear of death, and the fear of loss of love and poverty? There's something funny I can quickly share that occurred to me when he's talking about the fear of death, which I've never thought before, is that imagine everyone's moving around and busy. If we never died, we'd always have to be the same person our whole through all eternity. So at least by dying, we can like play different characters. So that occurred to me. I'd never seen that like that before.
Yeah.
What about anyone else? Did anyone else recognize themselves in what Jackie was reading?
Well, of course, I'm getting older, and but I've chosen during my life to not worry about age or death or anything like that. I don't think it's really relevant. When your time comes, it comes, and that's fine.
Yeah. You don't make a big thing out of it.
No, not at all.
And what helped you to do that, Glenn? Did you just suddenly decide one day, or did you just never really get bothered about it, or?
Well, yeah, I think I decided when I was fairly young. I exercised regularly since the time I was 30, and I said, well, if I am going to get older, then I'm going to just do the things that I can do to keep my life at a good, happy state, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I work at.
Cool. Yeah. What about anyone else?
Hear me? Oh boy, I think I'm echoing. Huh?
Oh yeah. It sounds like you're in a church.
I'm in a hallway because my girlfriend and her mother's friend, they're upstairs talking. So that's why the background keeps changing.
Ah, you're trying to find somewhere quiet.
Like trying to. And sorry, I'm late. But I think in my my teens, my 20s, my 30s, the fear of loss of love was always such a big one. And, maybe because that's one that was probably my worst, other than fear of poverty, definitely the one that gave me the most trouble, like literally trouble for so long. And now it's not an issue, But that's so hard when it happens, The jealousy and all the stuff that he mentioned.
Yeah.
That's always one that you have to really control. You have to work to control it. It's like if you now they're opening the window. If you cling too tightly, what was that? There was an 80s song. If you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control.
Yeah. We're losing you, Tracy. I think we've lost him.
I feel like I was thinking, like, my biggest fear is I hate being alone. And that's kind of, I guess, maybe, I wonder if that falls into the fear of loss of love category.
You mean being alone in like literally at one weekend, or do you mean like alone without a partner in life?
Both. I always tell my husband, I'm like, we're gonna die together, or you're going, or I'm going first. I'm like, we're just gonna die in a car accident together, and that'll be the end. I don't care what anybody says. And everybody always laughs at me. But
Yeah.
but I hate being alone. Like that's part of why I'm in New York right now. I don't like to be alone ever. Like even when I'm at my house, and if he leaves for like a couple of hours, I usually go find him.
Yeah.
And then I complain I never get to be home alone. But I don't know if that's the same thing.
Well, I guess it's maybe fear of the loss of love of someone in a way, and a kind of a hybrid of them. Because he's talking about how they come in cycles, and that fear is nothing more than a state of mind. So, and that when we fear something, it becomes, like I'm just reading back from the beginning, it immediately translates itself into its physical equivalent, whether the thoughts are voluntary or involuntary. So becoming more aware of that, Jackie, can help to like not give it so much power, you know? I think I've lost. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also, I think replacing the fear with something that constructive that you're working on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
That's a great point, Glenn. Like using a question can often help, you know, like flipping it around.
Yeah.
Like I'm not perfect at this at all. There's something I shared once before is I started asking, what's the best that could happen here? You know, when you find yourself
Yeah.
a little bit anxious about something, what's the best that could happen? So that you sort of switch the path that your brain is going down. And you're like, oh, hang on, and then ask the universe a question. Yeah.
I think I noticed yesterday that it came back again to going beyond that kind of heavy energy that can be prevalent everywhere.
Yeah.
I know because yesterday he was talking about the fear of criticism, and I had wanted to start a blogging challenge like for the last 3 months, and
Yeah.
I mentioned it to some friends who were there going, that's totally unrealistic, you're not going to be able to do it. And that stopped me, and it really surprised me that I had let myself kind of get into self-doubt based on that. So I found it really interesting that it really reminded me, yeah, I have to kind of keep reminding myself to go beyond all the doubt and the heavy stuff and the fears. Because fear is actually just kind of created, that it's not actually real, I have to keep reminding myself fear isn't real.
Yeah, exactly. And that reminds me actually, Jackie, of I've spoken about it once before, but a while ago, like the book Illusions. It's a fiction book by Richard Bach from the 70s. And it's a brilliant book. It's very easy to read. But at the start of it, it has a written passage, and it's all about this river, and everyone lives in the river. They're all clinging to the bottom of it because they don't want to get carried away by the tide. And everyone lives the whole time like clinging to this river bottom, and they don't really have any kind of life because they're always just like clinging not to die. And then one day, one of the creatures says, "I'm sick of clinging. I'm gonna like just let go, and I'll see where the current takes me because I don't think it's gonna kill me." And all the other creatures are like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. You'll die. You'll be crushed on the rocks." And he just says, "Well, I don't care. I'm doing it." And he lets go, stops clinging, and he crashes on the rocks. But then the current takes him, and like he goes flowing down the river. And they're like, "Oh my God, he's like the savior."
Is that the same guy that was Livingston Seagull?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think my video is gone. But he
Did you see
basically.
what Tracy put in the chat? Fear is. What did you say?
False evidence appearing real. Exactly. It's just like an illusion. It's a great analogy for like what, like you just shared, Geraldine. We can get put off by people who are scared themselves, and it can be, but it is powerful. I know what you mean. Like sometimes when people are really forcing it on you, it's like, wow, okay. Uh, and that's, yeah, so Tracy just shared in the chat, fear is false evidence appearing real, which is exactly what we're just talking about. It's a great way to remember that, actually. Cool. Oh, by the way, would someone be up for hosting Friday's study group? Because I'm leaving, I'm traveling on Saturday, and I won't be able to be here. I have to do something on Friday with Chico. So I'll post in the group about it. But if you're willing to do that, that'd be awesome.
I can do it. Gives me a good.
Yeah.
Got to get up on Friday.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jackie. I'll bump up the post I made about how to do it, so you've got that video again if you need it.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I see.
All right, everyone.
I see that Tracy just posted an interesting thing. It says fear equals false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
good.
Yeah, that's a really great way to remember
Yeah.
what this chapter is talking about. And he posted Chico. All right, everyone. So let's just remember, fear is false evidence appearing real, and perhaps become more aware today and like this week as we're reading this chapter. Okay, where are these ghosts living in my life? The fear of poverty, the fear of ill health, loss of love, the fear of death, and I've forgotten the other ones. I've got them here. The fear of old age and of criticism.
Criticism is
Okay.
going to be a big one, I bet.
Yeah. Oh, I think
Especially when you put yourself out there.
I have a really good quote about
Okay,
criticism.
everyone. My connection is not working at all, so I'm gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Sorry for the audio. See you.
Bye-bye.